It's a beautiful day in Cache Valley, my favorite time of year, and you chose to be here. You could be there, but you're here. And I promise you this will be a worthwhile investment on your time. I'm Brett Crane. I'm the director of the Covey Leadership Center, and we're delighted to have you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of the 2024 Principal Centered Leadership Award here at the Stephen R. Covey Leadership Center. We're delighted to honor Jackie Pullinger, who has come all the way from Hong Kong to be with us. You never got to meet Mother Teresa. This is a modern day Mother Teresa, someone who's dedicated her life to the service of others. And we'll have the extraordinary opportunity to hear from her in a few minutes. We're delighted also to have her friend Margaret, who's traveled with her companion for decades, equally yoked in some extraordinary work. We want to recognize Stephen M. R. Covey and Jerry Covey, who are with us as well, Dean Anderson, Boyd, and Michelle Craig. We also have guests from across the pond. So Reverend Teal is here with his wife, Rachel. We're delighted to have her, as well as Lord Dr. Michael Hastings, who we'll be hearing from in a little bit. So we are a part of the Covey Leadership Center, and our purpose is to help you become individuals of character and competence, to discover your purpose, to live by your values, to help connect deeply with others, because we know in doing that, you'll live a life of flourishing. You'll have greater influence and impact, and you'll think about how you can contribute to the world. One of the best ways that we facilitate that in the Covey Center is to expose you to people who have done that. In order to be it, you have to see it. And so you're going to rub shoulders with and see people who have done just that, found purpose, found their values, connected deeply, and figured out that life is not about accumulation, it's about contribution, as Stephen R. Covey said. We have a book for you if you're interested. So Jackie's written a book called Chasing the Dragon. We'd like to make that available to you with an invitation. So the invitation is, if you would write a short essay, 1 page, write what impacted you today and what you're going to do about it, what action you'll take as a result. You'll send that to me, brett.crane@usu.edu. We'll provide a free copy of the book for you. So again, thank you for being here. The program will be as follows. We're going to hear from Dean Anderson. We'll talk for a moment, share some remarks with us. And then we'll have Lord Dr. Michael Hastings introduce our recipient of the award. We'll then have Stephen M. R. Covey present the award, and we'll hear from Jackie Pullinger. We'll have a conversation with her and Lord Hastings, and then we'll open it up to you. So we'll invite you to think about questions that you might ask. We'll have a roaming mic. Dean Anderson.
Thank you, Professor Crane. I'm delighted to take a moment or two to make some remarks and to welcome you all here. You may wonder, why is this in my ear? And the answer is, earlier this week, I missed a delivery by AmeriGas of propane gas for our cabin over the winter. And they told me they were going to deliver it today. And I'm afraid I'm not going to hear the phone ring. And if it does ring, I don't want you to hear it. So I'm hoping to be able to finish my remarks before they call. I also have one other thing I'd like to point out to you, and that is this tie. I wear this tie on special occasions to remind me of a dear friend, and there are 2 dear friends who have passed away that I'm thinking about today. This tie was given to me by the family of John Huntsman. It was his tie that he wore often, and they gave it to me in his memory after he passed away on February 2nd, 2018. And of course, we wouldn't be here today without John Huntsman and his great example and his life of contribution, service, and leadership. The second dear friend that I'm thinking about today is Stephen R. Covey, who was the first John M. Huntsman Professor of Leadership here at Utah State University, and who passed away 12 years ago, this 12 years ago in July, and who we celebrated his birthday this month. Which day was he born in? October 24th. And Stephen Covey used to say, think about what you want people to say at your funeral. And sometimes he would say, think about what you want people to say on the occasion of your 80th birthday. And Stephen sadly didn't make it to his 80th birthday. He died just a few months short of his 80th birthday. But on October 24th, 2012, his 80th birthday, we had his son, Stephen M.R. Covey, come here and spoke lovingly and insightfully about his father's great legacy. So today we're celebrating two great men whose lives have touched millions of people around the world and whose legacy lives on here at Utah State University. Our purpose is to be a career accelerator for our students and an engine of growth for our community, which means first and foremost this university, our state, the nation, and the world. And our mission is to develop leaders of distinction in commerce and public affairs. And I can't think of a better way for us to serve that purpose than to honor people, women and men, who have done so in their life, in whatever field of endeavor, that gives us a beacon, a lighthouse, to guide and direct our own path through life. And today we have the great privilege of honoring Jackie Pullinger, who I've had the chance to get to know this week, and I'm honored to be here with you, Jackie, and with your dear friend, Margaret. Thank you for making this effort to come here. And now I have the privilege, Jackie is the fifth recipient of the Stephen R. Covey Principal-Centered Leader Award. And I have now the honor of recognizing the first recipient of the Stephen R. Covey Principal-Centered Leader Award, and that is Lord Michael Hastings. When I first met Lord Michael on the occasion of this award ceremony, I was instantly drawn to him. And I had the privilege this morning of joining the Freshman Academy and hearing him speak in front of 400 or 500 students. And he spoke on the issue of purpose. And I think I said to him afterwards, Michael, I can listen to you all day long. He says, oh, you don't want to do that. But it's true. I could listen to him all day long. And I have been inspired by his presence. He, along with Professor Boyd Craig, shares the honor of being the Stephen R. Covey Professor of Leadership here at Utah State University. We were very fortunate to persuade him to carve out a little bit of time in his busy life from serving in the House of Lords in Great Britain and of traveling around the world, working on any number of important, vital, urgent matters, to be also a professor here in Logan, if you can imagine that. And only through his grace and modern transportation and technology are we able to do all these things, because it's impossible to be everywhere at one time. But he's able to do things that others cannot. And today he spoke on purpose in front of the Freshman Academy. And Michael, as good as you are, as masterful as you are, and as much as I have loved listening to you on so many occasions, you were in another zone today. You were off the chart. And I have a feeling it's because you were inspired by your friend Jackie, who is here today. And won't you come up, please, now and introduce her properly. Thank you. Do you prefer this or the handheld?
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this, let me call it, magnanimous moment. In 1997, a new British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, took the journey to Hong Kong to finally, after many hundreds of years, hand Hong Kong back to China. And China was proud to get back one of its wandering territories, which had been so strongly associated with the drug trafficking reality of the exit of the import and export business associated with such evil. When Britain left Hong Kong, there was a sense of, relief. But there was somebody who had been there already a substantial period of time. That is this remarkable woman, Jackie Pullinger. She didn't turn up in 1997 when things looked a bit shiny. She turned up in 1966 when you couldn't even fly to Hong Kong. So she had to take her journey from England as a young woman in her early 20s on a boat. That's a bit of a trafficking journey to get herself to Hong Kong with barely $10 in her pocket, knowing no one, nowhere to live, no job, and nowhere to stay. But a call that was resident in her spirit. I must go and serve the people who are the most desperate, the most broken, the most alienated, the most forgotten. She's come here today from Hong Kong because she's still there. And you can do the maths for yourself from 1966 to 2024, and you can figure out how long she's stayed with this mission. A woman of such elegance. I remember before I met Jackie, friends said to me, and I met her first in 1990, friends said to me, "Oh, look out for her fingernails. She paints her nails and does her lips with such elegance. She retains her beauty. She hasn't let it go for 1 second. She's a missionary who is a glamour model." And as you see when she receives her award today, she's retained that elegance. So it's a huge honor, Jackie, for us to have you here, to thank you for making the long, tiring journey, and with your great friend Margaret. Thank you more than anything for the sacrifice of your life and for the service you give to those that most want to forget, but you treasure. Thank you. So now I'll invite Stephen M. Arcovy to make this award.
Well, thank you, Lord Hastings, and thank you, Jackie, Margaret, for being here today. And thank you to all of you. The Stephen R. Covey Principle-Centered Leadership Award is an annual award that is given to an individual who exemplifies leadership in terms of service and contribution, and leadership in terms of modeling principles in the way that they serve and lead. Principles such as humility and integrity and courage and fairness and respect and empathy and compassion and love. How they do what they do matters. And it is a award that is focused on service and on contribution to the world. And we can think of no finer recipient of this award than Jackie Pullinger, missionary since 1966, in Hong Kong, founder of the St. Stephen's Society, author of Chasing the Dragon, and, as Brett Crane said, truly a modern-day Mother Teresa in our midst. So Jackie, if you could come up here, and I will present this award to you. We have a beautiful medallion inside the Covey Medal, we call it. And take the cover off here. On behalf of the Stephen R. Covey Center for Leadership in the John Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University, and on behalf of the Covey family as well, Jackie, we present and honor you with this 2024 Stephen R. Covey Principal-Centered Leadership Award. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And we're going to now be honored to hear from Jackie.
So can I draw your attention to the screens to your left and above? Before Jackie speaks, she wants to show you a little bit of what this appalling place called the Walled City was like in Hong Kong, this slum of degradation that God called her to go into in 1966. So just watch it.
A city without law, where you could jump from roof to roof if you knew the way, and aeroplanes nearly grazed the TV aerials. My friend, Ah Yin, shows the old tangled foundations of the city to our teenagers, while he describes his former life growing up there and conditions in a rat-infested gangster slum known as the City of Darkness.
好犀利㗎，咁就住咗5萬人㗎啦。
你係城寨人嚟嘅？
係啊，出晒長大學壞，搞震冇幫襯嗰啲。係城寨裏邊嘅 store 咯，啲水啊、電啊亂晒龍。喺呢度做呢啲生意咧就唔使攞牌啊，呢牙科嗰啲。係咪真係掂啊？掂，我都係咁整嘅。
An interview with a documentary producer describing the room called The Well, where drug addicts came in droves to find help and Jesus.
人哋係新界、鴨脷洲、柴灣啊，人哋搭車幾個鐘頭啊，因為上嚟呢度啊，聽過呢度有希望，所以好似黑暗嘅地方變成光明嘅地方。
咁點解你會叫呢個地方叫做水源呢？
因為係攞水嘅地方啊，就有生命嘅水。
Our story was made into a musical in 2007. Here's a song.
我尋照你走進這城寨，全無一光可光照每行每界，光明界沒有光明，就像城內的光景，漆黑面告，人生迷途。這城寨似一個黑暗迷宮， 流民和妓女，一生仿似場夢。大井街滿是煙檔，醉濃這迷惘失喪，滿路窮途，誰可告訴心聲那會期望聽到？黎明前在黑暗，光明將要降臨。在這城寨裏，將望見我所持的福音。黎明前在黑暗，光明將要降臨。無盡的傷感，你此刻的犧牲，令這三不管之成件歡欣，讓這小城變花園，現心生。這城寨似一個黑暗迷宮，流民和妓女，一生仿似場夢。大井街滿是煙檔，醉濃這迷惘失喪，滿路窮途，誰可告訴心聲那會期望聽到？黎明前在黑暗，光明將要降臨。在這城寨裏，將望見我所持的福音。黎明前在黑暗，光明將要降臨。無盡的傷感，你此刻的犧牲，令這三不管之成件歡欣，讓這小城變花園，現生生。
阿媽要翻工，阿爸都吸毒嘅。我細佬都吸毒噶。咁點解即係用咁多力、用咁多時間去幫你呢班都咁冇用嘅人？明知揾你笨嘅，佢都唔在乎咯，係因為耶穌咯。
So we start with a funny story. This is called The Slapper and the Sylph. And it's about two people that I meet at my swimming club. By the way, if you're British, we forgive the slapper bit. It means something slightly different in that country. Anyway, here he is, the slapper. You should see him from the back. He has the greatest legs. His physique is marvelous. His muscles are great. And as he swims, he heads for the goal. It's not a racing lane, though. The problem with my swimming club is it's irregular. So most people like me swim round and round. He swims from one end to the other, focused on nothing but whatever his goal is. He slaps the water. So impressive to hear, so impressive to watch.
He has goggles, but he cannot see. He's blinkered. He has no peripheral vision. I've tried many times, waving, but he can't see. I've tried to swim nearly across him and wonder if we will collide, but I never dare. And I always have conceded. I always do. He has a swimming cap and he cannot hear. I've tried shouting. Maybe he has his own music going on inside his head. Then there's the other one. I call her the sylph. Whenever I go, she's there. She's amazing. She's a tiny, long-haired local. She glides and she swims. It's hardly believable, more slowly than anyone I have ever seen. She's very, very graceful, and she can go on for a long, long time. She barely makes a splash nor a ripple, but she smiles. And when we pass, she raises a hand, and she knows my name. Now, success, as I believe we're talking about focused lives and what is success. Well, this little story, which I think about every time I meet them, is about one person who notices no one. And there is a verse about him in the Bible, which goes, his pleasure is not in the strength of a horse, nor his delight in the legs of a man. But the Lord delights in those who fear him and who put their hope in his unfailing love. I also hope very much that no girl will marry him before watching him swimming. It'd be a smart thing to do. I need to know what you're going to get. She, however, in the long run will make it. She has endurance, and she's careful, and she's sweet, and she knows my name. The battle is not to the strong, and the race is not to the swift. Made a little picture of them, just so you can see. And my conclusion about the two is not very profound, but I believe that our lives and my journey, what is really important is not who we won against, or even ourselves, or even achieving what we hope to achieve, but who we have affected along the way. That's all. In the end, that I choose to be important. Lord Michael Hastings, Dean Anderson, Dr. Crane, professors, board members, students, and I think some of you are called Aggies still. Yes, thank you for inviting me and for the honor you've conferred upon me, which I was somewhat conflicted about accepting, in case basking in pride, fame, and earthly glory might disqualify me from receiving the one reward I hope for in eternity, which is to hear the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Anyway, I'm not here to preach, but to share extraordinary stories and the most of all unimaginable fun I've had in my short life so far. I know, Michael, you just drop this age thing, will you? Oh, by the way, while we're at it, I rarely paint my fingernails I'm a pianist, but I always paint my toenails. So I've had unimaginable fun in my short life so far. And what's happened lately is what I call a very terribly unfair comeback that's occurring more and more now from tiny, tiny acts of kindness, which were done many, many years ago, even decades. Little things I thought that no one saw have become like epic fables of amazing exploits. Surely that wasn't me, but I was there. And this is how it happened. I was surprised when I found out that Jesus was smiling most of the time. For I had believed in him as a child and had dreaded meeting him. I had a mistaken impression he was marking me, and I felt many marks against. So when I found out differently, it was a huge relief, a huge surprise. And what else would you do with your life if he's that good and if he's real? And by the way, my knowing him is a complete mix of personal experience and high objectivity. So if I absolutely believe objectively he is who he says he is, then what else are you going to do except spend your whole life with him doing what he wants? That's it. So that's how I got there to Hong Kong. It was through many, many ways of praying. He said go, and so I got onto a ship and prayed to know where to get off, which was very exciting because there was a pastor who said, maybe you go all the way around the whole world just to talk to one sailor about Jesus. So my great thing was I didn't have to achieve anything, and neither do I now, nothing. So if that's what the whole journey was about, that was what the whole journey was about. And I even thought, oh, it would be wonderful. Maybe we'll get shipwrecked. And then I will end up on an island where there's one man just waiting to hear about the love of Jesus. So you see, your life's in his hands, you can't lose. So that's how I got to Hong Kong in 1966. And the riots had just begun. It was the Cultural Revolution in China. And I was overwhelmed by the needs I saw on every side. Someone introduced me to the walled city, and I was never supported from overseas. I got a teaching job to support myself. And I began to see life, well, I always have, from the bottom upwards. And meeting the poor, the kids who couldn't afford school. There was no free schooling. Addicts, gangsters, young prostitutes, and their old keepers with needle marks in their arms. For what would you do if you've been a young prostitute? You would either die or become an old prostitute. And to make it bearable, you might stick something in your arm. There's no legal aid, so I paid for solicitors, even though in the walled city there was no law. It was outside the law of Britain. It was a peculiar anomaly. So the police just arrested anyone they wanted and pinned crimes on them, and I sat there in court weeping at corruption and started a youth club as an alternative for young people. I just wanted them to have a way to choose, not just to be forced. As one young boy I knew, he was 14. He sold tickets in a pawn show. Everything in the walled city was tiny, just one little room, so it was a very small cinema. But if you start when you're 14, that's your life over already. Anyway, I've heaps of wonderful stories. I'm going to tell you some. Apart from the thousands of addicts, and I do mean thousands, who've lived with us, and I do mean lived with us. I don't mean living in a center. They live with us. And they get free from drugs, and they get free from drugs without pain. We don't give them medication. We pray, they pray, and a lot of great miracles. Anyway, I'll begin with Grandpa. Now, I first met Grandpa in court, and I was a bit amazed that this old man, he was often there, so you must be getting arrested frequently. But he knew exactly when to stand outside and when to go in. But not exactly standing. He was squatting. You know, Chinese very good at squatting, so he had a little gambling circle around him. And then my turn to go in, so he goes in, and the magistrate says, consuming opium. And Grandpa, who has no teeth, goes, and guilty or not guilty? Guilty. He's very happy about that. All right. Then he's, all right, how many previous 79 previous convictions. Okay, so it's 79 previous convictions, so he gets only 1 day in prison, or 100 Hong Kong, that's about 10 of yours, fine. So later on I learned that was his living, was getting arrested. And he used to sit, he was an opium addict, he used to sit outside the opium den, and the police, who weren't supposed to be in the walled city anyway, but they made raids. They would telephone the den that we're coming now to make a raid, and they'd close the den down and leave Grandpa to be arrested. So that's why he'd got 79 previous convictions. And he made, not bad money out of it, because he got free opium and $10 to spend after that. But it didn't go well until he got, he had to change to heroin, because opium is very smelly. And if you ever smell it, it stays in your nose forever. And he couldn't afford the heroin, and he was getting poor. And by this time, many of our men from the youth club had got off drugs. And I used to pass him in the street, and I'd say, hi, Grandpa, can I pray for you? No, I son that. No, my girl, I'm a Buddhist. It doesn't mean he's a Buddhist. It just means he says, I'm a Buddhist. Okay, so anyway, I'll pray for you anyway, Grandpa. So one day I came to him, and he got a very poisoned leg. And I said, oh, Grandpa, So why didn't you see the doctor? He said, no lang, I'm waiting for you. So I put him into a taxi and took him off to a hospital. And I put another man sat beside me who'd come off drugs. And so I said, now, Grandpa, I'm afraid that in the hospital, you're going to go through drug withdrawal. And so this is what to do. Just pray in the name of Jesus. And he said to the friend sitting by me, 有冇搞錯啊？信講耶穌個名就得呢？ And the man said, no, it's really true. It's really true. You know, that's how I got off drugs. You just have a go. So a week later, came back. He was still in the hospital. His leg was healed. I said, well, how did the drug withdrawal go? Because, you know, they give you substitute drugs, doctors, which is not a good idea. But anyway, he said, well, I'm off drugs too. Just what you said. I said Jesus' name, and the pain all went away, and I went to sleep, and now I'm going to come and live with you. In the end, they all come to live with me. That's why we've actually got thousands. There's a walled city widow, and she'd bought a baby for $15. You need a baby, by the way, if you're a widow. What else do you live off but a son? Instead, he took all her money when he got on drugs. She sold herbs in the market, and she got just $1 a day. But she was mostly arrested daily by the hawker control, and or else she had to go to court and or pay bribes. And I said, well, how much was the bribe and how much was the court fine? She said about the same. But the bribe meant that it was quicker because you didn't have to go to court. And one day I found out that she was dying. Her son had not let me visit her because he said she worships idols. Actually, it was because he wanted all her money. And she was lying in bed. She decided to die. Because he'd gone to prison, and if you have no son, you have no future. So she had nothing to eat. She just decided to lie there until she died. So she had a chest complaint. And so I said, Mrs. Chan, can I pray for you? And she said, what do I have to do? I said, no, you don't have to do anything at all. Just close your eyes and Jesus will come. And so, you know, she's a bit interested because she never heard of Jesus. And she closed her eyes, and after 30 seconds, her breathing began to get better. And I said, oh, you know, that's because Jesus has come. By the way, God knows exactly how you feel about losing a son, because he lost his son, you know, so he really does understand. But when Jesus was down here, he put your chest pains on him when he died. That's why you're feeling better. Oh, so it's going on, and she's getting healed as we go. And it's a very long story. If you want to read some of the longer ones, they're in the book, because my name is Long Wind in Chinese, and I'm not going to get to the end of this one. But it ended up with her getting healed, and then I boiled soup. If you know anything about Chinese, soup's important. And she started a new life. She used to come to my house, pick up all the clothes she could and wash them. And then she got addicted to toast and marmalade. Then there's another lady who used to pull my sleeve when I walked down the streets, and she said, please let me live in your house. I'll do the ironing. I'll do anything. And she had been a prostitute. She was still working in her 60s. And she was jealous because we had all these men who had been gangsters and got off drugs and living in my house. Can't I live in your house? But how could you put a 60-year-old prostitute in a house of 12 men coming off drugs? That's not a good idea. What had happened in her brothel? Oh, a young girl had refused to service a client because she was pregnant. And so the owners of the brothel put a water pipe down her throat and poured water down until she died. And another old one had slipped on the floor, and neither death was reported. We're in an illegal city. And she was so afraid that she would die before anyone would know she'd lived. So, of course, we found room for her. Wouldn't you? Of course you would. She's very tiny anyway, so she only would need something like one of your closets. We prayed her off heroin, and when we undressed her, found 3 black bruises down her back. That was her payment for her services. 3 injections a day of heroin and 1 bowl of rice. Anyway, after she came to live with us, she met another old addict and they married. She married in white. And then they both joined our outreach teams to the poor. Yeah, we've got lots more stories. But the latest ones are really the strangest. There's just been a film made. They're actually going to put it up for the Oscars, which is extraordinary, but it's a film about the walled city. Now, actually, the walled city came down 30 years ago, but they just made a film. It's not true. It's just a romantic gangster. It's called Twilight of the Warriors, I think. And the director of the film, Hong Kong director, mentioned that he'd read my book. And he's not a Christian. He just read my book and enjoyed it. So what's happened in the last 4 or 5 months? Everybody in Hong Kong keeps finding me and saying, I've seen the documentary about you. I haven't made any documentaries. But because of this film director, everybody's been doing whatever Google things people do. And they're all watching videos that someone else made. In the film clip you saw, there was a park. And there is now a park where the walled city was. And before it came down, which was Britain agreed to give it back to China, National Geographic, Canadian, Britain, Europe, everyone you can think of made a video, a documentary about the walled city. We were in them all because we were there. We were in the middle. And so this city of darkness became famous for a city of light. And instead of people running away from it, it became the place where people came to find light. And it's all come back again. There's no reason at all why. I went to buy some face cream last week. It was a very top-end store, actually, but I've just mentioned I like free samples, you see, so I'm always hoping. And the girl there said, it's you, I recognize you. Oh, thank you for what you've done for Hong Kong. I got a free facial. And I mean, it's terribly unfitting. oh my goodness, you just saw a bit of a video and you're saying thank you and I get a facial after, and that was 30 years ago. And then Margaret and I broke my knee, Michael, a few years ago, and I was in A&E for 14 hours waiting my turn. And in came this boy who was on drugs with a policeman. And Margaret and I said to one another, oh, wish we could help him. And his mother followed by. They went into a medical, security bit of the ward. And then over the loudspeaker came a call for me for my x-ray. They said, to poon ling chuk, to poon ling chuk. And this boy's mother came up to me and said, Poon Sute, ni came Miss Poon, do you remember me? No idea who she was. She said, walled city, and it would have been 50 years ago. My father was mistreating me, and you took me into your home. Do you remember? You saved my life. Thank you. And so through that, we were able to get to know her and her son. Did I remember? No. I was always taking people into my house. And then last year, another one appeared for worship, and she said, Miss Poon, thank you, thank you. Do you remember? 30 years, 40 years ago, as you were coming out of Walled City one day, you came across my father and you took him home. And if you hadn't taken him home, he would have died and I wouldn't been here. Thank you for my life. And I thought, oh my goodness, you get all these ones for free. You know, I was always taking people home. I even remember, and this happens all the time. My last few weeks have been eating meals with people who said, if you hadn't made stop the family from aborting the baby and help my parents to get married, I wouldn't have lived, and there's a whole string of grandchildren. And on their feast day, I get to be their family member. I get to sit there and I think, oh my goodness, you know, there's a text I want to finish with, which is, whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. The lie is that you give up everything and you're the loser. It's a complete lie. What you give up is in nothing in comparison with who you gain. There's no comparison, as Jim Elliot said before he was martyred. He is no fool to give what he cannot keep, to gain what he cannot lose. And I just want to say that I've had more fun than anyone I know. I couldn't have made this up. I couldn't have imagined it. But mine won't be more fun than yours. Yours will be what you're made for. And what you're made for, you'll be so good at doing, because it's what you're made for. It might not be as dramatic sounding, but it will be just as important. And I just pray that you will touch many people along the way. The last scripture. act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God.
So just a couple of moments if anyone would like to flag a question to Jackie or make a comment, or if you've been to Hong Kong. Yes, right at the back. Be bold.
It's just one person at a time. That's not hard. A whole lot of people at the same time is hard, but one person, and mostly I would think, supposing that was me. Supposing I was locked in a brothel, I would want someone to get me out, wouldn't I? So, yeah. And you know, the other thing is, when I first went into the walled city, I had this unreasonable joy. So it actually wasn't hard for me. It actually wasn't. I mean, the truth is I loved it.
Someone else? Yes. Yes, please stand.
Um, never question his presence. I felt sorry for myself twice. It's a very unattractive missionary quality. It only lasts. It won't do. You actually cannot have it. It lasts for about 10 seconds. Yes, it makes him look very bad.
Another? A lady here. Yeah.
I also served as a missionary, but I recently returned home. I listened to Lord Michael this morning talk about finding your purpose once again, and as I'm no longer a full-time missionary for my church, I want to know how you both found your purpose and how it has directed your life. Both of you.
Okay, a minute for me. I had, as a young man in Jamaica, I was born in England, but went to Jamaica. Ironically, the year Jackie was heading to Hong Kong, 1966, I was heading to Jamaica as a little child, and the country became politically, pathetically poisoned. And all of a sudden, it was very quick. The economy was destroyed and people became violent in the streets. And I did witness, I saw people being killed before me, and I saw extreme poverty and need and brokenness. And I think it embedded when my parents said, no, you've got to leave, my brother and I, you have to leave. You've got to go back to England to school. It embedded in me so deeply that it became a lifetime mission. I couldn't not deal with what I'd seen. I had to make it my call.
Thank you. I taught for a while. I played in an orchestra in Hong Kong at the same time as being in the walled city. So for me, it wasn't being a missionary or being a musician or being a teacher. It was who I was and who I was meeting. And really, what I wanted more than anything else was for people to know the love of the Lord Jesus. That's all. So it wouldn't have mattered what I was doing, but one thing led to another. And, you know, just like with Lord Hastings, he was just an ordinary teacher and found himself somewhere else. So you don't know. I think it's how you want him to use you, not what position you want to be in, and then you get there.
So I'm just going to ask Jackie one or two further questions, and then we'll be wrapping up. So, Jackie, what are the most? Let me put it my way, but I know you'll slap me if I say it wrong, as I've discovered many times this week. Well, I mean, she's very good at correcting my foolishness. One of the most maybe ambitious things you did, but tender things you did, was you married a man who was himself an addict, and you had 7 years of marriage, and then he died, and he died because of connected to his drugs. Just talk to us about that decision to marry, and how you dealt with the grief.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'd loved him for a long time before we married. So if anybody is thinking about marrying somebody with an addiction problem, they better be very well worked out. This is not a romantic thing to jump into. So we'd worked together for many years, so it was very easy. I mean, for our most of our married life, we were out 6 nights a week, so it wasn't as if we went home and learned to cook. So we did most things together, and I think the grief, you know, it says the death where is your sting, grave where is your victory. I dealt with the grief before he died, and so which is a long story, but it meant that when he did die, he was ready and I was ready. And so it was very, very sad, but there was no sting. And the joy of having been married to him was so much greater than the pain of losing him, that I was very sad, but I felt not cheated or not soul shot at all.
In your years, in your decades, the city is changed. Thousands have come to freedom, and the walled city you referred to is gone. There's a garden, and there's a great rock statement about you, which you didn't even know they were going to do. And so there is the government recognizing your service, your sacrifice. And you've had, over the decades, governments in Hong Kong, leaders, companies come and go, and they seek you out. What is the particular thing they see? What is it the rich see that they don't understand the poor have?
They like to be around us because we've got what they haven't got. They're jealous. We have people who say, you're poor, have more faith than we do. They love God more than we do. They've got what we're poor in comparison. So we always knew that, of course. So when we meet rich people, we are not remotely interested in their riches. We are very, very interested in what we can give them, because we know that being around us, I mean, it's the same thing. they're terribly poor in their own way. And I think we have what they need. So it's found that the combination of rich and poor go very well. Skip the middle class. No, don't skip the middle class completely. It doesn't matter. They're on their way up. So we want people who are on their way down.
Wow. So I'm going to ask you to recognize Jackie in this gift today of the Stephen R. Covey Leadership Award, but recognize this remarkable. She isn't Mother Teresa reincarnated. She is Jackie Pullinger living the mission still at her tender years. So would you stand with me and just cheer her on so that she can remember how much she's loved?
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you for honoring us by being here today. And thank you for inspiring us to do more and to be more, regardless of what purpose you choose, regardless of the journey ahead of you. Consider your life as she has, as an adventure that consists of how many people you can help along the way. And you'll experience the same joy and fulfillment that you saw from her.